Take a breath. Welcome to Space to Exhale, the podcast. Weekly inspiration for self-love and soft living. I am your host, Lisa Hurley. I'm a 3-time Anthem Award winner, Reiki master, and community builder. And I'm the author of the book, Space to Exhale. Through healing modalities like breathwork, affirmations, and meditations, I'll guide you on a life-changing journey to help you know yourself, love yourself, be yourself, and create much-needed space to exhale. Hello, everyone, and welcome. Welcome again to Space to Exhale, the podcast, a safe, serene sanctuary where we focus on high vibrations, affirmations, soft living, and self-care. As you know, I'm your host, Lisa Hurley, and I'm the author of Space to Exhale, a handbook for curating a soft, centered, serene life. I'm here to help us all do just that. Relax, take a breath. Say no to hustle culture and yes to a life of ease. And my hope and dream is for us all to curate lives that we don't feel we need a break from. Today, I'll be joined by a very special guest, Dr. Jade Singleton. And as I add her to stage, let me read you her bio. She is just absolutely one of my favorite people, and I'm happy to have her here. So, about Dr. Jade. Dr. Jade Singleton is the creator and director of 92, the silent revolt no one saw coming. She's also the founder of IKONI Collective, a work-life balance support network for Black women. Jade, welcome. You're on mute, I think.
Now I'm here.
Now you're here.
I was just saying so effusively, and you are one of my favorite people. And so this is such a blessing to be here and an honor, just an honor, Lisa. Thank you for having me.
Same. The feeling is mutual. As you know, and all of our listeners, just to let you know, by the way, those who are tuning in and listening, this episode, normally Space to Exhale, is live. This episode is pre-recorded. So in the spirit of transparency, I'm just letting you know that. But it is going to be just as vibey, just as wonderful as it always is. And so before we get into the conversation, let us do what we normally do. This is called Space to Exhale. So let's take a moment to exhale. So let's all close our eyes, relax our shoulders, relax those little micro muscles around your eyes, relax your top lip. I know that might sound strange, but these are the little areas sometimes we don't even realize that we're holding stress and tension. Relax your forehead. And now, let us inhale through our nose and then exhale through our mouth 3 times. So inhale and exhale. Again, inhale and exhale. And one more time, inhale and exhale. Okay, and as you come back into the room, I hope that you're feeling a bit more grounded, a bit more relaxed. And before Jade and I delve into what I know is going to be an amazing conversation, let us focus on the affirmation for today. And this affirmation is, I am giving myself permission to rest. As Jade and I are talking, you're going to realize why this is today's affirmation, because today is all about Black women especially, right? Resting, reclaiming ease, giving ourselves permission to live softer, easier lives, and also not getting involved in things that don't concern us, right? choosing peace wherever and however we can. And so as we go through today's episode, just hold this affirmation in your mind. I'm giving myself permission to rest. And so with that, Ms. Jade, let us get started. So you and I met. We met and just immediately went into collaboration, which I
Yes.
absolutely love because we actually do. What I love is that we both do similar things, and rather than it feeling competitive, we immediately moved into how can we collaborate. You have a community for Black women, I have a community for Black women. That's not a problem. How can we work together? And so I love that, and I appreciate you inviting me to be a part of your documentary, which is called 92, the silent revolt no one saw coming. So for those who may not yet know, what is 92 and what inspired you to make a documentary?
Yeah. So
Documentarian by trade. So what inspired
yeah,
you?
definitely not. But what inspired me was really, I'm a researcher by trade, and so I'm
Mhm.
always looking for themes, right? Like my mind has been very like cultivated. It's been kind of beaten into me that
Yes.
you know there's all of these thematic ways in which to approach changes, especially as they're occurring societally. And what I
Mhm.
was noticing across the board was this strategic detachment that Black women were kind of doing collectively, right? And so, because I'm not a practitioner like you are, Lisa, or like other women that are in my sphere that really practice this work, really practice about rest, and put that into play, I thought I'm not the most qualified to talk about what's happening and what's going on, but this focus on rest, this
Mhm.
focus on pulling back and getting more centered into yourself and centered into community is a movement. And I
Yes.
did not want it to be lost with so much being erased, so much of our work being erased at this current, point in time. I didn't want this to be lost as something where, Black women have just kind of disappeared from the fight or whatever, for whatever it might be, democracy, whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
We're here, but we're doing different work. And so
Yeah.
I wanted to illustrate that by having women like you and other women that I admired talk about this and talk about how they're approaching it and how they're working with communities of women. And that's what the documentary was born out of.
That is wonderful, and I have to say that I'm so pleased that you are doing the documentary. As we record this, it is very, very close to being fully birthed. I know it's not quite
Yeah.
there yet, but it's very, very close. So whether you are watching and listening to this before 92 comes out or after it's released, the message is make sure you watch it, make sure you support it. That is one of the main messages, because and this episode, as usual, it's for everyone, but it's for us. It is
Yes.
for us, it is for Black women. So make sure you support. I do love that you are focused on essentially creating lasting artifacts that
Yeah.
that cannot be erased. And because you are doing this independently, and you are not in general not focused on on a studio, on institutional funding and so on in general, um, you have ultimately the final say in how the story gets told, what is included, the final cut, etc., etc. And in while you do have to work with distributors, you do have a choice in how you choose to the avenues you use to distribute as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that was a huge, huge component of this. So our executive producer, if for those of you that you will know this name right away, you'll know why she's the executive producer. But Tara J. Frank, who's a
Yeah.
phenomenal, just all around everything,
Hey,
author. I mean,
Tara.
the list could go on and on and on. When Tara and I kind of got together, it was kind of like, kind of a match made in heaven, because we were both
Yes.
thinking the exact same things.
Mhm.
We wanted this to be beautiful. I did not want this to be a trauma reel. I did
Yes.
not want this to be something that was going to jump out at jump scares at
Jump
Black
scare
women.
folks. Right. Exactly.
It's incredibly important to me that it felt like resonance, that it felt like rest, that the visuals were beautiful. These were things that I felt so strongly about that I, went as far as looking for a cinematographer from Japan to come in, who I've admired his work and the way that he shot feminine beauty, because I just didn't want to take it to chance with the kind of harsh type of cinematography that's typically done when we're talking about Black women in documentaries, right? So I wanted it to feel this kind of airiness to it, and that's difficult to sell, if that makes sense.
Oh, it
It's
makes perfect sense.
difficult
Yeah.
to sell that as a pitch idea because it's not, it doesn't give that kind of evocative jump scare type of
Yeah.
moments and trauma that folks are used to seeing when they think about, Black women in documentary in the same sentence.
I was speaking to another Black cinematographer just yesterday actually, and who's also doing a documentary. But we talked about, in terms of like selling through the film and so on, the difficulty in sometimes what people want, people being the public out there, right, is, and the people holding the purse strings, is that they want trauma porn, and they want Black women depicted in a certain way that many of us experience as traumatic or negative. And so I am so happy that you made a deliberate choice to lean into softness. And I've been honored. Thank you very much. I've seen a couple of previews and a couple of clips. They're all beautiful.
Thank you.
And immersive, and they make you want to be wherever this location is. I need to be there, because this is joy, this is peace, this is alignment, this is introspection, this is self-love. All of that is conveyed through the visuals that you have chosen, and not just the specific, how it's framed, how it is lighted, the narration, all of it. It's beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Lisa. Yeah, that's so funny that you used that word because it's exactly what Tara said to me. And we both I'm like, this is exactly how I've described it as well. It needed to be beautiful.
Yes.
Beautiful. Yeah.
So we've talked a bit about the project in general, but the title specifically, again, like, you don't do anything by accident, right? And so it is called 92, the silent revolt no one saw coming. And to me, it feels historical, it feels prophetic, it feels timely, it's everything, it's across all timelines at the same time. So for those who don't know, can you take us behind the title? What does it mean? What does it symbolize?
Sure. So 92 represents a couple of things. 92 represents, of course, the 92% of Black women who voted with the intent of keeping our democracy, of retaining and preserving our democracy. But also 92 also represents some of the numbers and the figures that I was seeing around Black women's burnout. So there was an article, I believe it was in Rebellion magazine, that talked about how 92% of feeling this level of burnout where it was difficult to even contemplate true rest. And so when I was looking at some of these percentages, some were like 88%, 89%. And I was thinking about the resonance between these extremely high numbers, right? Like the correlation there, that very high percentage. I mean, when you talk about 92% of anything from a data perspective, I mean, it's incredible. And so I'm like, wow, look at that correlation, right? 92% willing to kind of vote to save the democracy. And then on the flip side, 92% also roundabout facing this burnout that makes it difficult for you to even think about what it truly means to be able to rest. And so that's where the 92 was born out of. The silent revolt no one saw coming, that component really talks to what I believe is happening, which is a stoicism that's come in to Black women's consciousness. And I don't mean stoicism in the sense of like not caring or apathy, because that's definitely not what's going on. But
Exactly.
there's a kind of, I need to be able to spare myself. I need to be able to spare my community. There's a protective nature around this. And that in itself is extremely revolutionary. It's something that we have not done before. It is something that, you know, the imposed martyrdom that's been placed on us, defying that and taking back what is ours. That's a revolt. That is revolutionary.
Yeah. I was interested again, having had a little bit of a, you know, a peek behind the scenes. I know, and I think it might even still be out there. At one point, the subtitle for the documentary was The Rest Rebellion, right?
Yes.
And then you changed it to The Silent Revolt. So why that change, and what led you? Because that change was relatively recent. So
yes,
I'm guessing that once you saw the film almost in its totality, something clicked. So what was that? What clicked? What was the catalyst for the change?
I think what it was, and I'll tell you the truth, Lisa, because that's all I can do.
Yeah.
Because we're in the situation that we're in, Black women, we often find ourselves kind of pitted against each other in one way or another. It seemed as if every time I turned around, it was someone saying, I thought of rest, you know, I invented rest, you know, you can't use this. This was my thing. This belongs to me. I started the rest, whatever it would be, fill in the blank.
Oh,
And
gosh.
at first I was, you know, I was like, oh gosh, you know, I'm not even thinking about this. I haven't even seen this work. I don't know, you know, and I was getting a bit annoyed by it.
Yeah.
But what happens sometimes is when Black women, we've consistently had to fight for, you know, to be at that table, we can find ourselves in that kind of,
Yes.
you know, tension. And I didn't want to add to it. And also in looking back at the film, sometimes things happen for a reason, right? And
Yeah.
there's alignment there. So even though at first I felt annoyed by it, I said, is it really what I'm describing though? From what we're seeing, is this really about rest?
Right.
And what I recognized is it really wasn't. These women are not kind of resting in the sense that at face value, you might think of it as. They're actively doing a ton of other things. They're doing a ton of work. The vocalization of what that is, who they're vocalizing it to, is completely different than how we've typically rebelled, right? So I felt like it's from what started from a place of a little bit of scarcity and confusion, led to better clarity around what we had actually filmed. And it seemed more like we're keeping silent to certain systems that we had been very vocal to before. And so that's where the Silent Revolt was born.
Yes, I love that. And rest is part of it. Like you said, rest not in terms of, not in an apathetic way,
Yes.
or stoicism not in an apathetic way, but rest is a part of it. But what I do love is that the silent revolt is simultaneously specific and broad, right?
Yes.
So the silence part is
Yes.
very specific. The revolt part probably has multiple aspects to it, and so I love the old subtitle. I love the new one even more, and
Yeah.
I definitely, you know, I think that, you know, again, as things happen and evolve with creative projects, you're often led to what needs to happen, and I think that change is what needed to happen. So
Absolutely.
I'm excited to be a part of the Silent Revolt, and
Yes.
for people to see this film, because let me tell you, just the snippets I have seen. Whew,
Thank you so much, Lisa.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Just honestly, I ran out of words. I don't even have words to describe it. I'm actually getting chills right now. I'm seeing that clip that you posted with, I think it starts with Tara.
Yes.
First of all, it starts with Tara's face card. Let's just start there.
Yes, it does. It's the face card, literally.
Starts with the face card. But Tara's spirit comes through.
Yes.
Of calmness, of integrity, of gentleness, cloaked in strength. All of that somehow is communicated. She's walking on the beach. It's just absolutely beautiful, you know. Yeah. So you're gonna have to stop me from waxing poetic about it, because I just love it so much. So speaking of rest and how it does, while it's not the only focus of the documentary, but it is a part of it.
Big time.
It is a part of it. So what role does rest play in Revolt?
Yeah.
The rest part of the silent revolt.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so in order to have a really well-planned strategic revolt of any sort against any system, you have to have clarity. And when you're running on fumes, or when you're constantly in a performance posture, it's very difficult to get clear. And what I was seeing when I, got to kind of stand behind the camera and look at these women that I admired, from the time we spent in New York till Tana and Rwanda, to see the clarity that they offered. You included, Lisa, of course. All of it came from a place of having to get very, very still. And being clear and committed to, no, this is the way that I want my life to go. This is the direction that I want to take. But it required this period of needing to almost convalesce to get there. And so that's what a lot of this is about, right? Talking about the breathwork. Lisa does a beautiful part of and role in the film of explaining that, of that kind of taking that space, taking those breaths, and how it is that you breathe. That is a huge component. It's almost like you can't get from one place, you can't get to revolt without having rest and clarity. And that's what oppressors know, right? One of the first things that's taken away is your ability to rest.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I love what you said about needing that space, or space and time, before doing anything big or small. If you're going to do it well, including living your life, right?
Yes.
You do need space and time to rest. It's like in dance, before doing a pirouette, you have a preparation, right? You get into position, and then after that rest, then you pirouette, right? Yes. But you can't just spring right into it. Or it reminds me of a cocoon phase. The cocoon phase has to happen for the butterfly to emerge. The hibernation phase needs to happen for the bear to come back and do what bears do and live and enjoy its life in the woods. But the rest period is necessary. And you see it in nature, the cycles of nature. And though we are disconnected from it in large part now, we are actually part of nature. And so as human beings, as sentient beings, we need rest in order to be our fullest selves. I truly believe that. Yeah.
Me too.
But a lot of us, I find, still battle guilt. We feel guilty about resting, especially Black women, because we have been conditioned to serve. Society conditions us to grind. So how can people unlearn embodying grind culture and hustle culture? Or is it possible to?
Read Space to Exhale by Lisa, and that will take you through the steps that you need to get to really understand how to do that. Like literally, the book is about that, and it helps you to be able to visualize that as you're moving through that journey with her. So that's the first thing I would say, is definitely get Space to Exhale. And Tara's working on a book too called You Are Before the World. We were talking about this before we came on.
Can't
That
wait.
really talks about this as well. And so I would say, you know, again, looking to what has already been experienced can go a long way, because each is going to be different for everyone, depending upon your life, depending upon your lifestyle. It is a trade-off. If you choose to go through this period, you know, Lisa, that you're talking about, the cocoon phase, the hibernation phase, there are losses, right? Like, what are you willing to do to get through that phase? How have you set yourself up to be able to take that time? Otherwise, it's kind of like you're just kind of talking about it. You're edging around the perimeters instead of doing that really deep. I have to take this step back. I have to be able to do this work. And so I would say that's the biggest thing, making sure that you're ready, prepared, and that you have tools like Space to Exhale to really move through it. There's no one size fits all. And what I love about Space to Exhale is that it addresses that, and it gives multiple exercises to do that will fit into your life. So I would say finding those that it fits in, not something that you have to, you know, I'm not saying you need to go to the highest mountain and become a monk, right? Those daily practices are so critical, and you have to find the ones that work for you.
Do you have one that you?
Yeah.
What is yours that you can share? If you
So
could share.
I love Buddhist practice, and so every morning I go out onto my deck and I do my practice, and I come in. I often, you know, go into my washroom, get myself a mask that I can put on, which scares my kids. My husband scares my kids. And you know, put that on and just kind of think to myself, you know, for just a few minutes. But the feeling of going out onto that porch, onto that deck that's just off our bedroom is I get to get up and walk out into the open air, right? And
Yes.
just being able to feel the open air first thing in the morning for me makes me feel alive. And then being able to do my practice, and now that it's gotten colder, I can kind of see my breath, right?
Yes.
It can feel really liberating. And then, you know, so having something to look forward to. So I try to think about, well, what is there one thing that I can look forward to today? And before this, I used to just get up and it was like 50,000 things I have to do. So it felt heavy, like a weight, right? But when you have a practice that's built in where it's something that you enjoy doing, right? Like, I mean, some folks, they get up and they're doing like really hard stuff in the morning. Like you're out there, you're pumping iron and stuff like this, right? Unless you super enjoy it, I would say bake something in that's enjoyable. For me, it's walking out into that air, right? For someone else, it could be something completely different, but finding that thing.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, nature, and just because although you're out on your deck, but it's fresh air and
Yeah.
it's the morning sun and all of that, and allowing your body to rise more gently and awaken more gently. So I absolutely love that. So, but let's get back to filming in Manhattan.
Oh my
let's
girl.
talk. She's like, oh my God, must we talk about that?
That was not rest. That was the opposite of rest. But yes.
Because here's the thing is that, and I'm glad that you said that, because one, as you said, we cannot just move to the mountaintop and be monks or whatever. So life has to be lived, things have to be done, but you create rest where and how you can. Like you said, you have a daily practice, or maybe after what was an interesting day of filming.
Yes.
Very interesting, in air quotes, day of filming in Manhattan. Then you take some rest after. But in the meantime, you have a film to make.
Yes.
Right? You have a film to make. So somehow it was definitely an interesting day, but I have to, if I haven't said it before, I have to give you kudos, because somehow it was not, of course, I'm not the filmmaker, so my experience was different. I'll say that for me, for me, yes, there was a lot going on, but it was not stressful. Now you might have felt differently because you you are the filmmaker. So what was your experience?
Oh my goodness, it was a lot. It was a lot. We had a lot going on. And I did feel like, oh, I'm going to be overwhelmed by this. But the thing is, the women that I selected to feature, and I was so deliberate about this because there's a love that I have for each woman in that you see. There's a kind of similar energy as well among the women featured, which is why I think we were able to gel as such a group very quickly.
Yes.
And so there was a part of this where we literally had some issues with the lighting, where I selected this nice studio to do some of the
Beautiful,
filming.
yeah.
It was lovely. It was like, this is perfect. And I have this very amazing cinematographer. As I said, he traveled all the way from Japan, and like, so it was just a lot. That in itself was a lot.
Yes.
And then the lighting issues. There was like a problem with some of the lighting. And we literally built a light filter.
We rigged it. We rigged it.
Yes. Holes. He got one side. Lisa came up with the brilliant idea. Nope, we need to stack some chairs. So it was like very makeshift. We found some gauze or something, and we were all
right. Yeah.
But the beautiful thing about it, first of all, it looks gorgeous. So none of you will ever be able to see the contraption that was the 6 foot 90-degree angle.
Somebody got a photo.
We do. We have some
because nobody would believe.
Elonia was on there on one side, or your close girlfriend. It was a lot. And I think that it was beautiful, though. It was beautiful because the women that were being interviewed, all of us immediately jumped into like, how can we help? How can we build?
Yeah.
There was a lot of laughing, a lot of giggling, a lot of joy. And that's what I wanted to come across in every moment in making this. That's how it felt. It felt like joy, release, sisterhood, care, kindness. And so even with that contraption, right, there was some glee to that. There was some joy to that. There was a story to that, connection and community.
Yes. And speaking of, all of the women gelling and so on, if you mentioned, your amazing cinematographer a few times. So one of my questions is, because you're a first-time director, and I was like, I was like, how is she doing this? This is amazing, because I haven't been involved, sort of in things of this nature at this level, but I've seen enough, right? And so I could tell him, like, okay, Jade is doing this at a high level, and she's a first-time director. So like, how did you go about? You mentioned a bit about how you chose your cinematographer. What about the rest of your cast and crew? You have a musical director, I believe.
Yes,
a composer. Like how did you choose everyone?
So here's the interesting thing. So I talked about how I chose my cinematographer was through seeing some of his work. I just fell in love with the commercial that he shot. It was unbelievable, and I had to get him. And then for the rest, it was interesting because people began to raise their hands. And so out of nowhere, right? So we have an Academy Award winning composer named Tika, who just reached out. She saw some of the footage and was like, this is lovely. I would want to be a part of this. And I believe reached out to Tara. Tara too, I think, just saw the idea, the concept, and immediately asked how she could weigh in. And she has such a creative and brilliant mind that it really helped, I believe, to elevate what it was that we were working on and how we were thinking about the process.
Right.
And I, in my mind, had the story. I knew what I wanted to show, and I knew how I wanted it to sound to an extent, but I needed to be able to speak to people who could take that and make it into what I was seeing in my mind. And so we also had, multiple Emmy Award winning Dr. Janice Collins, who has done documentaries herself, who has served as an executive advisor and really helping me be able to think in pictures, get those words out around
Yes,
like,
yes.
or even what it would sound like. So she might say something to me like, she's like, I understand what you're saying. She's like, I get it. You want it to be like like soft, like you want it to swing back to center. That's that type of way of being able to communicate has been integral. And so having folks like that, that's how they were selected. People who could take this and translate it and show it and depict it.
Beautiful, beautiful. And in terms of writing this script, is there a script, like a general guideline? Is that how that works?
Yeah. So
yeah, how did you go about doing that?
It's interesting because you start out with a script, it never ends up there.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Because
it's not even the same. It's a 180 by the time you're done.
By the time you finish the interviews, there's something that's like, oh, Lisa said this, and wait a minute, Dr. Day said that. We need to, there's some marriage here that needs to take place, and I need to show it visually. That might adjust the way that you're writing it. So I started out with this script that I thought was like really good. If I say so myself, I was like, I'm sure it was awesome. And now it's like, but it couldn't be more awesome than what this collective group of women came up with, right? There's no way that one mind could really have captured all of that wisdom. And so you go back and you say, okay, wait, we need an interjection here. Wait, we need an interjection here. So a big part of the script was starting with a through line. So where I wanted people to start and where I wanted them to end up, but I've learned to let go of the middle, right?
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that. Ooh. Let go of the middle. That's deep, actually.
Yeah.
That's your morning Buddhist practices coming through there. That's deep. That's a quote right there. That's beautiful. Thank you. So let's switch gears a minute, because I want to talk about your upcoming book, which again, I am super excited about, and I'm hoping that sometime next season. I know I'm doing this to you. I know as we're recording this, but I'm hoping that you're able to come back.
I love to.
Yeah, and discuss it in more detail. But so your upcoming book is called The Stoic Era: Black Women, Power, and the Quiet Rebellion Against Empire. And let me just tell you, when I tell you there are no words wasted in this title, right? Because we have stoic, Black women, the era, the power, the rebellion, but the rebellion is a quiet one, the empire. Like, I'm like, what? There's so much richness in the title alone. And of course, the main title is the Stoic Era. So what, define for us, if you can, I know you touched on it a little earlier, define the Stoic Era as you understand it, and explain why the Stoic Era is important now.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I was seeing when I was interviewing, but then also kind of at a macro level, was stoicism being described in different ways. And stoicism really is focusing on what it is that you can control, developing a very rich inner world, developing almost like a very strong core that you can operate from, your morals, your virtues, right? And understanding that the outside world has its impact, but you have this reserve, you have this inner dignity. And that's what I was seeing a lot of, again, like I mentioned, the strategic detachment from things that we feel like we cannot change, and a focus on what it is that we can change. And so I have always been a big student of societal movement and how societies and cultures shift and change. It's been a fascination of mine for my entire life. And so what I was seeing here was that Black women were always kind of in the proverbial coal mine. You start to see those pain points hit us typically before they hit larger society.
Yes.
And the fact that we were entering into this strategic detachment mode, which is very new for us, lets me know, the empire isn't doing so well. The empire might be on its way out. So when we look at cultures and when we look at empires and we look at societies that have risen, done these great rises, like the American Empire, and then has these falls, typically you'll see a stoicism start to set in, where people start to look internally. And there's a couple of signals and signs that happen. You start to notice, instead of doing a whole bunch of new creation on the culture side of things, at the macro culture, people start to just re-energize the old. And that's what we're seeing on the outer level, this kind of old Confederacy style of thinking. These are recyclings.
Yes.
And with Black women, because you're consistently within our culture innovating, thinking of, what the newest thing that we're moving into, right? We're no longer sharing that. That's being gate kept more than ever before. So we're able to do that without this kind of re-energized, recycled way of thinking around exclusion and cruelty, to be honest. And so that protective barrier was something I wanted to document in some way. And so I went ahead and started writing, and this is what I've come up with.
Oh, wow. How long did it take you to write it?
Oh my gosh, it took forever because I started it like a year
Listen,
ago.
when I tell you, I felt that, oh my gosh.
It was so boring initially because I'm not I'm not a particularly I always wished I could be kind of witty, kind of like the fun. I'm not like that. I'm a very kind of serious woman that's just very boringly academic. And so when I initially began, it was very oh my gosh, I finally get to talk about
very researchy and academic.
I just want people to hear about, and it was written in that way.
Yeah.
But again, as I continued kind of going through this process, I was able to bring in voices that were lighter, voices that were able to add different levels of layer and richness and Black womanhood to it. And so I was able to create something that is more enjoyable versus kind of anthropologic. And that made me really excited. So it took about a year, moving from boring academic, no one will ever want to read this ever in their life, to, oh my goodness, this has turned into something that's more personal, that sounds like sisterhood and documents what we're actually going through.
And can I just tell you, it takes a lot to be able to critique your own work, because we all love our babies, right? Our book babies, right? Even in their original form. But to have the absence of ego, really, clarity, absence of ego, to say, okay, well, I love it. I love what I wrote. This is my style. But who is going to be reading this? How will this land on them? What do I need to change? How can I improve? That takes such a level of humility and excellence that a lot of people, frankly, do not have. And so I admire you for being able to do that, because it's not easy, because a lot of us love our first draft.
Yeah.
Love it, because that was the original idea and we don't want to move away from it. So I appreciate that you were able to basically have enough clarity and be mature enough to say, okay, this is not, the message will not be received if I deliver it this way. Let me change it. So that takes a lot. So kudos to you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it needed to be, the sophistication certainly needs to stay. And that part of it is perfectly fine, but the application of it was what was missing. And that's where I needed sisters smarter than me and wiser than me to kind of add some of that. Tara was one of my first readers too, and kind of gave me some of that feedback to be able to run with. And we continue kind of evolving in that way, just like you said, taking it, because it's not about me. And when you don't center yourself, it makes it so much easier, right? It's like, no. This isn't about me. I'm not the author of this entire movement, right? I'm a part of it, but I'm not the holder of it. And so how can I write this in a way that everyone that has a piece of this and is experiencing it can actually relate to? And that's what's come through, I hope.
I love it. And thank you. I am just excited to, get my hands on an actual copy. So
Yeah.
wait, speaking of which, because this episode is coming out before the release of the book. So is there anything you can share with us about, and if you can't share, that's fine. If you can't share, like, when will the book
Yes.
be ready for pre-order and release?
Yes.
And can people sign up to your mailing list? Hint, 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 folks, and get more information about it. Like, tell the people all about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So it is currently up on Amazon for pre-order via Kindle, and should be probably sometime next couple of days. The paperback will also be up and ready for pre-order. So definitely by the time this airs. But yeah, December 20th is the release date. It's self-published. So there's no one holding the cards right now, so I can get it out there. Yes. And we're going to just move forward with it. And I hope it resonates. I really do.
Okay, fabulous. So folks, if you're listening to this before December 20th, go and pre-order. On December 20th, go and order. And get it as Christmas presents for folks, right? People are going to need this. This is a wonderful, wonderful thing that you could do. And also, and if you're listening to this after the release of the book, still support the work. And I'm speaking, for another author, as an author, a black woman who is an author as well. Please go write reviews, support, post, like, comment, share, do all the things, because I'm telling you, Dr. Jade, myself, Tara J. Frank, some of the people that we've mentioned, it might seem that there are a lot of us, but I have to tell you, Black female authors are a fraction of a percentage of the authors in the US and the world. There are not many of us, right? And so definitely go out and support Dr. Jade's book whenever you are watching and listening to this. So and Dr. Jade did not ask me to say this. I am just doing this because I know how it can be difficult to promote a book by yourself. So Dr. Jade is all about community. So as part of her community and mine, let's go there and support. So that's it. End of spiel.
Thank you so much, Lisa. I appreciate it.
Of course. So something that I noticed in your work is that you've mentioned a phrase that I certainly am not familiar with, institutional betrayal.
Yes.
Which I kind of have fallen in love with. I mean, it's a hard phrase, fallen in love with it just from a linguistic perspective, and because it helps to encapsulate an idea and an experience that I've gone through without having language to name it. But once you mentioned institutional betrayal, I'm like, oh, I understand this. So can you define for those, people like myself who are new to the phrase, can you define institutional betrayal and maybe explain how it manifests, particularly for Black women?
Sure, absolutely. So the phrase institutional betrayal comes from researcher and sociologist Dr. Jennifer Freed. And I believe it's been around for some time, but it really focuses and encapsulates the kind of phenomena that happens when we are betrayed by systems. So, for instance, if you're in a situation where, let's say, you've been sexually harassed at work, you go to the HR department and you all of a sudden are made to be the villain, right? You're not just betrayed by the person who is harassing you, you're now being betrayed by an entire institution. Mm-hmm. And so this is especially complicated when the institution or the system has said one thing but done another.
Right.
So they hold the highest value is in, let's say, community, right? But then you're faced with whatever it is, backbiting, exclusion, and the opposite of the very core of what the entity said that it was. Mm-hmm. And so when I'm talking about institutional betrayal from Black women's perspective, especially as this deals with the United States of America, what I see is a lot of that. There was always this kind of hope that the country would be able to achieve the values that it states, right, and live those out. And I think that for a lot of Black women, post-election, they felt institutionally betrayed. We had made some of this progress. There was a focus on DEI. There was a focus on kind of coming together post George Floyd, and being able to see that once again, this was another kind of thin veneer of civility.
Yes.
And that fabric can be torn and to shreds at any time was kind of the ultimate institutional betrayal. And then I'll just add this, and then I'll stop yammering on.
You're not yammering. This is good.
Thank you. The other component of this is that, hundreds of thousands of Black women have lost their jobs within a couple of months, sheer months, right? And while Black women continue to go out there and risk themselves and lobby hard and do all the things that we were supposed to do, raise money, there's nothing. Again, we have to look to each other.
Yeah.
And not the institutions that we put ourselves and our souls and sometimes our lives on the line for. And I think this is a recognition and a reckoning that we're seeing in this stoicism that Black women are exhibiting on. We really have each other to lean on here.
Yes, we do. And speaking of that, you have, I want to touch on your wonderful community, IKONI Collective. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Yes, perfect.
IKONI Collective, because that is putting into practice what you just spoke about, Black women being there for each other, holding each other in sisterhood and community. So can you tell us a little bit about the collective? When was it started? Why, what inspired you? All of this stuff. Tell us.
Yeah. So we started about 2 years ago, and I didn't know what it would be. I just knew that I wanted to have a community of women that were like-minded. Again, where there was no competition. It was just pure collaboration, safety, and kind of almost like a sanctity. Yeah. And so what happened was I tapped a few women that I highly admire on their shoulder and said, would you be willing to talk once a month and kind of share your expertise? And so we started doing those kind of virtual sessions, right? Which was like amazing because we were getting really invaluable knowledge from amazing Black women where it may have been difficult to get them in a session. They might be fully booked or whatever. And so some of this was about access and having access to the best, having access to the best, the brightest, the kindest women that we could find. And then we started to do in-person sessions once a quarter. And those were just magical. They were amazing, working with women like Lauren DK, who does a beautiful somatic practice, and bringing those things together, right? And having those experiences. And that's really what it was all about. It was that simple. And we do a lot, we did a lot of writing on kind of work-life balance and all these other things. But what I'm noticing is that's really shifting. More of this is focused on the inner balancing and how we can ultimately move through that process and what community actually looks like. And so that's where we are.
I love it. And, again, what I so appreciate is that you are about the research, but you're also about the work, and you show up, you're like, oh, this needs to be captured. I'm going to do a documentary. I love the bravery behind that and the conviction behind it. And I think that may be one of the reasons why, and I'm not saying everything has been smooth, but in general, things have fallen into place.
Yes, they have.
They have, right? But it's because you are operating from such a place of pure conviction, and it feels almost like this, all of this work is like a calling for you.
Yes.
Does it feel that way?
Yes, definitely. It
Mm,
definitely does. And it feels as if I wanted the platform to be, I wanted to share the way that I felt in the room with these women. I wanted to share what I learned from each of you, right? And I wanted that to get out in some way, because we all have our communities. But I think the beauty of it is I wanted it to get out. That's how I felt. I wanted the message to get beyond, it, as far and wide as possible, in a place that it couldn't be taken away. And so
yeah.
when you have a maxim like that, when you have a when you feel that that's something that has to happen, it makes it so much easier, because you're not operating from a like, well, what if, or I
Right.
don't
There's
have
no doubt.
the
There's
chance.
no doubt. There's
It's
clarity.
like it
Yeah.
has to happen,
Mm,
and I know who uh, needs to be involved, and the right people will show up, and that's what happened.
yeah.
The right people continued showing up, funding, and we did a lot of grassroots fundraising. People saw it when you articulate it, and it's clear, and the intent is clear. I've learned people see that, and
Yeah.
they commit to it.
That's beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. And again, I am just excited for when both the documentary and the book come out.
Yes.
And we will definitely have to do some more chats about that. So as we're coming soon to the end, unfortunately, of this wonderful episode. Of course, the show is Space to Exhale, and we always talk about how do we find space to exhale? So you, as a woman who clearly we've just discussed, you're doing all the things. You're doing all the things, and of course, you have a family, you have a spouse, a partner, you have children, you have all the things going on in your life, all the roles that you play. So how, in the midst of all of that, are you creating space to exhale in your own life?
I think being vocal about what
Mm,
it is that I need,
mhm.
um, asking for things that I felt uncomfortable asking, for before,
Yeah.
stepping away from things that don't serve me anymore, and not allowing myself to second guess my instincts. That's what's been able to give me the space to exhale, I think.
Okay, that's beautiful. And I'm so happy that you have spent this time with us. I consider you to be a quiet rebel, right?
Thank
A quiet rebel. It's and all of us have a different role to play in activism. And I don't know if you even call what you do activism. I see shades of activism in what you do. But definitely, a quiet rebellion, a silent revolt.
Yeah.
What is your prayer or your wish for the next generation of quiet rebels like
I
yourself?
really, oh my gosh, I think the freedom to go down your rabbit hole,
Mm-hmm.
the freedom to be able to study the subjects that, for quiet rebels, I mean, to give yourself to your expertise,
Mm-hmm.
to where it is that you fit in the world more fully. That
Yes.
to me is like the best thing ever. When you can do the thing that you know that you were born to do, and have the focus and the clarity and the energy to do it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Okay, thank you.
Thank
Thank you, my
you.
friend Jade. This was absolutely wonderful. Thanks for joining me and for blessing everybody who's watching and listening with so much wisdom, so much light, so much grace. And I wish you every success. I'm wishing you success, but I already know that the documentary and book are both going to be successful in all the ways. And again, folks, definitely make sure to follow Jade on LinkedIn. Check out her website, ikoni.org, and make sure to support everything that she's doing. And so with that, thank you all so much for joining me on Space to Exhale, the podcast. Tune in every Tuesday, and it's either going to be on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and also on Spotify and all of the places you normally listen to your podcasts. And if you want to dive deeper into what Jade and I discussed today, definitely make sure you follow her, go pre-purchase her book, available on Amazon, and also get a copy of Space to Exhale. So goodbye for now, folks, and remember that you are worthy of rest, you are worthy of love, and you are worthy of having time and space to exhale. I'll see you next time.
Take care, everyone. Thank you.